Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. Today we're speaking with T as part of our Life Stories series. This is our third conversation in the series. The purpose of our Life Stories series is just to have some conversations with people in our community so they can share their lived experience. We're hoping that having these conversations is going to help to educate people, to reduce stigma, and maybe open the doors for more conversations and communication, and help to open hearts and minds. So today we're speaking with T, and I just want to say thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us. And maybe if you'd like to introduce yourself. And
my name is Taniya Maree Pine. I'm from Garden River, Ontario. Lived in Barrie for the last couple of years off and on. Unfortunately, in the last year, I've lost my eldest son to drugs and an off life. I've been struggling myself with homelessness and addiction as well. And I'm here to try and open everyone's eyes to what's really going on.
Thank you for sharing that and being here. Again, my heart breaks for you at your loss. I also had the loss of my son, and I know how hard it is to continue on after such a loss. And so I just admire your courage and your bravery and the way that you persevere. And
thank you.
Yeah, if you want to just talk about what you feel are the most pressing issues that you want to open people's eyes about.
What do you think? That's hard to say. I think that it should be with everyone, that we should care about everybody. I don't think there should be who's first and who's last. I'm Ojibwe, and I find that within our culture, we respect our elders and look for our elders to learn everything that we couldn't prior to being born, so that we could teach our younger children what should be and how it should be. They make their own path as they grow up and go on, and we're there to direct them, not to pretty much pave the path, but to actually just open the door to another decision. Instead of having just a fork in the road, then there are more decisions that can be made if you can just give them more options and how to treat people. I think everybody should never look at anybody else with color or with judgment. Unless you're ready to clean your own front step, I think that there shouldn't be anybody that should be putting forth someone else's dirty laundry, if you want to say. I think that if you haven't walked in that person's shoes, then I don't think you have a real opportunity to say that that's how this person should have done it, or they should do it this way. I think just conversing and actually helping them and not being overly opinionated, but or judgmental, and just talking about yourself more than talking about the person in front of you. I always say that if you put a mirror in front of yourself and you talk to yourself, that's how you would want other people to talk to you. And it's really hard to sit in front of a mirror and say really rotten things to yourself without smiling, laughing, or thinking that it's funny. And the more you say bad things, the more bad you feel. So if you could imagine what it would feel like for somebody who doesn't know you, who doesn't listen to what you have to say, or is very opinionated about what you have to say, then it's very hard for that person to actually open up to anybody else, to ask them for help, especially when they've seen so many people before them go through so much diversity with every resource that's out there, and every outcome is always different depending on the person. I find if you stay positive, feel positive, and you bring forth positive. If you find that somebody else is not treating you the proper way, then I think it's your right to have somebody speak to you with an open mind and an open heart. You can never ever feel what someone else feels, depending on the tragedy, the trauma, or whatever has happened to them, you can listen. And if you've had something happen similar, then you can understand. But unless you've just, there's never going to be two of the same trauma or two of the same diversities where you can say, well, you know, my heart hurts more than yours. I think everybody should take a lot of times and stay quiet and listen more than listen and remember. That's a big thing. A lot of people I find that are homeless get very upset because I think they want people on this side of the table want to ask what's wrong or how you're doing, because it's a cordial thing to do. There's no genuinity in actually finding out how these people are feeling or how they're doing unless you remember something from the conversation before, and their faces light up all the time. I find that when I ask some people like, hi, how are you, and or I bring up something that they've told me from before, they're overly ecstatic about how I remembered something through my addiction, through whatever was happening at that time, how I remembered something so minute compared to something that was bigger in their life. I always remember family issues all the time with people because everybody wants to have someone else care about what's going on in their life, as well as something with the person that I'm speaking to. I always find that there's always something like, did you manage to get your hair cut, or did you manage to do this, or can I help you do that? And sometimes just bringing that box of hair dye or whatever it is to a person that and they say, oh my God, you remembered. It really, it may not look like it or seem like it, but that person is always very overly joyed that you remembered something in a conversation that didn't relate to drugs, or if you have drugs, or can I have some drugs, or whatever it is at that time. I think people need to be heard a little bit more rather than people just wanting to take all your information and use it to make themselves feel better. And I find that happens quite often outside, downtown, anywhere. I find that sometimes the workers and counselors want to write something down on a file rather than take it into their heart and actually feel what that person or see what that person is feeling at the time, so that they can actually help them, because there are things that some people don't want to do because they've already tried to do it and it didn't work out for them. So you always want to go somewhere different and do something different for that person, because every single person is different, and if they keep banging their head on the same door, they're not going to want to open that door anymore. They want to be able to open a new door every time they try something, every time they do something. And everybody needs a hug. Everybody needs a hug, no matter what.
Thank you for that. Yeah, like the trauma, I try to always approach every person and every situation from a trauma-informed lens, thinking that this person has been through trauma. I don't know what their trauma is, and so, we're just trying the best that they can to get through this day, and I don't want to do any more harm to them, so I try to take a gentle approach, and I have to be aware of my own trauma and how that affects my interactions with people as well. Because that's hard too. But I really like the point that you said about, everyone is an individual, and, there may be people that had the same experience as you, but they didn't have the total same experience as you. Like every person's experience is something in a different way. And, so we need to be aware that people are individuals, and we need to treat them like individuals. Like, I really, there's a difference between equal and fair, where equal is everyone gets the same thing, and fair, people get what they need, right? Because everyone doesn't need the same supports from you. And so trying to push like, this is what we do and this is our supports on people that they have no interest in that support, just treat them, connect with them on a human to human basis, I think is so important. And I've learned that through the year that we've been doing Ryan's Hope and having interactions with people, is that They just want you to treat them like a human being, human to human contact. And the little things make such a difference. Like I remember somebody wanted this, and I give it to, and it may seem like the smallest thing, but it means so much to them. And when you see someone's face light up, and I think that you're really good at that, and you have a really good example of that, of doing that in the community, and that's why you have, so many people that look up to you and respect you, because you're able to do that. Like you are struggling yourself, having your own trauma, but you wanted to check on me when it was the anniversary of Ryan's death to see how I was doing, and that just meant so much to my heart. And that's what it is about, connecting with each other on a human level.
Somewhere along the line, I feel like human beings have forgotten that the people sitting across from them are the same kind of human beings that they are, no matter what color, race, gender, whatever it is. They have the same kind of heart, same kind of blood, the same kind of organs that make them tick, and the empathy and sympathy that the person needs sitting across from you, it's the same thing that you need. It just means that the greater value of one compared to the other may be different and not as equal or fair, I'd say. But you have to remember the person sitting across from you could be you. So if you spoke to that person the way you want to be spoken to, I always find that you always get what you give out. So if you sit there and give out nasty things, you're going to get nasty things back. If you sit across from somebody and give them all the empathy and sympathy that you wanted during your moment, then that person is going to receive that and give everything back the same way that you wanted it, without even asking, just based on a general conversation. It doesn't have to be said, well, could you listen to me so that I could get some sympathy for that, because that just sounds like somebody pulling at your sweater going, look at me kind of thing, which I don't find is a bad thing. But there's a certain way to go about it so that people just don't blow you off like, what's wrong with you? Oh, okay, and then just go on to the next thing. I think a lot of people have to take the time, and everything is so rushy all the time. I never have time in a day to do anything for myself. And when I do and somebody interrupts, I get a little bit upset. But I always apologize for that moment, because I always think about the person on the other side of the door that needs me for a minute. And there's not really anything wrong with giving up that minute. It's just the amount of time did I take to give those boundaries out before I actually sat down to do what I needed to do. And it's really weird, but I'm talking about going to the bathroom. But I just kind of going, okay, I need 5 minutes. You can't give me 5 minutes, then this whole day is just going to go wrong. And it was kind of like what my son did every day. He used to take down his little moment, his little addiction toy, down to the spear catcher every morning before dawn, and he would sit there and speak to the people that we loved and that are passed on, and not only them, but to the people that are still here on earth with us. If we weren't talking to each other, then we would send messages just by speaking out loud and being there alone and watching the sun. And he used to tell all his friends, if you're gonna come and bug me, I'm not gonna bother with you all day. If I can't have that one moment for myself to get a grasp of what I may need to do for you today, then I need my moment. And everybody needs their one moment, and everybody should respect and realize that there are some boundaries there that not everybody's gonna like, not everybody's gonna want to do that. But in order to get some satisfaction for themselves, they should let that person have that one thing, because everybody wants that one thing, whether it be an ice cream cone or a butter tart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Mine is a butter tart. That's what I'm going to get after this.
Yes.
That's my self-care moment. But I really think it's important for people to have those boundaries and to take care of themselves, and the routine, right? Of like, this is my thing that I do to take care of myself, and maybe it grounds me, or it's the way that I start my day in a positive way or something like that.
And I think it
That's
turns
so
out
important.
positive for that person as well. I always tell everybody, if I can have a cinnamon bun and a coffee first thing in the morning before anybody talks to me, I tell you the rest of my day goes perfectly smooth, and everybody gets happy smiles, and I do everything as much as positively as I possibly can without getting crabby or getting mad or yelling or getting frustrated. And most of the time it happens to me. It's either the wonderful lady downtown who buys me my coffee and cinnamon bun on an every other day, or the security guard down where I hang out that buys me my coffee and cinnamon bun, or me just remembering me the next day and hanging on to that $5 that costs my cinnamon bun and coffee every day, so that other people can get some satisfaction and some positivity out of me. Because I don't want to swear, but I think sometimes I'm a big butthead, and I don't mean to be. It's a self mechanism that I have that protects me from some things, but sometimes I forget that I have to shut it off in order to talk to somebody else. And I always apologize for it because I know I've done it, and other people don't deserve that. But some people have to see that if you're not paying attention and you get lashed, I think sometimes it's your own fault. But if you are paying attention, then that means a lot to the other person, that I'm going to give you a couple minutes because you look kind of upset or pissy or whatever it is. And that person that actually needs that moment is grateful that you actually recognize that without having to ask questions. Because not everybody loves that word, "Are you okay?" It's not fun. Sometimes it just seems very redundant to ask somebody consistently or constantly, "Are you okay?" Because not every day and not all the time are you okay. Or do you want to share it? Does it take some time to want to be able to say, "No, I'm not okay," but are you going to stop and listen to everything I have to say? Why? And if you're not going to take that time out, that person that doesn't feel okay isn't going to want to tell you or the next person. It's really hard to have that trust with people, to be able to give out all your heartfelt moments and not have them thrown back at you in a negative way. And if it ever happens in a negative way, that person that it's happening to, it's a harder wall to get through, just to get even a hug sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a thing that we hear a lot is, "Are you okay?" And people don't really want an honest answer to it, right? It's just something that it's socially you're supposed to say to people, but people don't really want to hear your actual true answer. And so it's like, it's hard to know sometimes how to answer that question or just ignore it. And it's like, so yeah, I think that people do need to be aware of the questions that they're asking. And if you're going to ask that question, then actually be prepared to actually expect an honest response and be able to somehow support whatever response it is that you're going to get. Otherwise, you shouldn't be asking that question.
Yep.
Sure.
I think there's 3 of them. I think it's, "Are you okay?" What can I do to help? Or is there anything I can do to help?
Is there anything I can do to help?
Yeah, I think it's the 3, because "Are you okay?" And if you're homeless, no, you're not okay. Or is there anything you can do to help? Well, yeah, but you're not going to give me the money I need for drugs to feel better, or whatever it is at that particular moment. Or what can I do to help? Well, I already told you that one. And when they ask that in a double question, it pisses the person off so badly that you're just kind of going, like, "You're not listening to me." If you could do that, I'd be okay, we'd all be okay, and then I could go on with continuing to try and fix the rest of my day. Unfortunately, with addicts, sometimes it's a stepping stool for function, and a lot of people don't see drugs and alcohol as a way for somebody to function. But if you've only learned that one way for so long, to reach out to do something else on your own, for that matter, it makes it that much more difficult for somebody. Like, it's like saying an old dog ain't gonna change his ways. Well, unless you teach that person and give them another reason or another way to do it with somebody else that's fun, then maybe it might be easier to construe something else to them. but for the time being, when they say it, they mean it. It's not something that should be taken lightly. Not everybody always wants to fight, hustle, steal, or whatever else it is they have to do in order to get the money to bust their butt to buy what they need to make themselves in an able way to function, to get other things done. Like, going to see 10 apartments in a day and have somebody tell you no. It's a really hard thing to do. And I think even for myself, to not have drugs, to be able to take somebody's, either ignorance or just somebody right out being mean, and they don't want to hire me because they don't really want to know what I'm trying to do to be better. And stability and responsibility for stability is one of the very first things that somebody needs to have a trust issue with. Somebody has to be given that so that they can go on with the next one. They're like, yay, that person actually believes me that this is what I want to do, because they gave me that apartment, they gave me that room, they're giving me the opportunity to make sure that I pay my rent, and now I can go on to the next thing because finally they got somebody to believe them that that's what they're doing. But when they get 10, 15 no's in a day and nobody wants to call them to tell them why, those people get really badly, I don't even know how to say it, but you just get deterred from trying to do it again. And I think with housing managers, housing people, I think what their job should entail is almost like a public relations. You have to have your client, and this is the client you have to sell without the client. And sometimes it's easier that way, so that the person who's renting can ask that person the questions without insulting the actual person. And some people, because they're older, they don't realize what they're saying is hurtful. And sometimes they're not trying to be hurtful, they just want to know. And some people, other than myself, can't be totally honest about what they're doing. They don't want to hurt other people or drag those other people into their spiral of downward moment. They just want to be able to continue using and figuring out their way. And responsibility for an apartment is the first step in trying to get better. And unless you have that, it's really hard to do that without that. There's no withdrawal moment. There's no, crying and not having somebody call the police on you, or, there's no extenuation of just running around in your own house and cursing and swearing. Not at a loud moment, but, just enough to get you by for the day. If you don't have your own place, because you can't do that when you live with somebody else. You can't wreck somebody else's home because you want to be upset about something, and you definitely cannot go walking around saying that kind of stuff. I've learned that firsthand, I'll tell you.
Yeah, so I guess it's like living in survival mode when you don't have stable housing, right?
It's always like that.
And it is, like you said, hard to focus on anything else without that stable housing, because you're just trying to focus on, number one, getting the drugs, which is what you need to cope and get through your day, and number two, where am I going to sleep tonight? And so that's why the housing first model helps people, because it's like you don't have to meet conditions to be housed. So people will try to help you get housed right away. Unfortunately, even though we know that housing should come first, we're in a housing crisis, and there is not any affordable housing, and there is the stigma there, right? So that people that are right now unsheltered, that are going up for apartments, are going up against people that have jobs and good credit and everything like that. So it makes it even more challenging, which I can't even imagine how that makes you feel defeated when you go to 10 viewings a day and you just get turned down one after the other, and have people say hurtful things to you. Maybe they didn't mean to, but they're just uneducated and they're not aware, right? And so that must be really, really frustrating. Is there some things that people people want to help, that's why they ask what can I do to help and stuff like that, but they don't know. Is there things that you could suggest would be ways that people could help people that are homeless in a respectful way that's not...
I think the first step for anybody to ask for any kind of help is always a hard thing to do, because when you're, in an early stage of your 30s, you want to be responsible for the things that you do. Unfortunately, some people are not going to change the way they think about people who do drugs or have issues in whatever manner. But I think that if you're a housing manager or if you're working within the housing, that there should always be that first interview with your worker rather than with you.
So having an advocate to be there for you, so that you're removed from possibly, being traumatized by a hurtful, encounter.
Yeah, it's exactly it. And then the person that's doing it for you should never, no matter what, should never have a negative thing to say, even if it has something to do in regarding your addictions. I think that anybody that is really serious about wanting a place to live has to own up to everything that they're doing and what they're trying to do to fix it. And the person who owns the home has to understand that there has to be given some time for the fall down and to get back up. But a lot of people don't know how to be honest with each other. They just want to burst and just say, okay, I'm not doing this. I've done this 10 times in the last 50 years of my life. I'm not doing it again. And those people aren't, that one person isn't the person who did it 50 times to that one person. So, I think, unfortunately, if you choose to rent something out in your house, you have to learn how to be very forgiving, very forgiving in that moment, and very trusting. And the person who's renting from you has to be made very aware of that, because like I said, it's just all based on conversation, and the honesty and how much one person can give and how much one person can take. If the person who's selling or renting the apartment can't take a person being honest about what they do and take it with a grain of salt and give them an opportunity to prove themselves, then maybe they shouldn't be renting the place, that they should give it off to somebody who's an advocate for them as well. Because when you're mean to somebody, it's hard to take that back, especially if it's a stranger. If the stranger is not even going to apologize for it, that anger from the person who is trying to rent just goes on to the next person, and you're like, oh my god, I gotta deal with another person like that. Oh yeah, I gotta sit here and wait and see what he's gonna say about me now, and that body language is very hard to hide.
So it builds up every encounter like that?
Well, every encounter does build it up, and most people don't realize that even the smallest sigh or the non-eye contact or whatever body language you're putting out there, sometimes you don't realize you're doing it because it's happened to you so much. You're just waiting for the next thing, the next rock to drop that isn't always good. It isn't going to open the door for you to say, here, I'm going to give you my apartment and let you run with it. Just take care of it and love it like you would your own child, and we'll go from there. But boundaries and stuff like that have to be respected and trusted, and the person has to mean it. You can't just say, oh, right on, I'm in. I just got to pay rent now and they can't kick me out. It doesn't work like that.
What do you think that Safe Supply would do for people? Like, if they had access to Safe Supply, do you think that would help people with being able to maintain stable housing and maybe be able to get a job? And
it might do better for the person who owns the property, but I don't know. Like, Safe Supply would probably be better for homeless people rather than people who have a home. Because if I had a home, I don't want to be renting out somewhere else to get high. I'd rather stay home and get high.
I'm not
stay on
talking
my
about
own.
a supervised consumption site, so I'm just talking about that you would have, like, people have access to go and get alcohol, which is a drug, and they can get a safe supply of that, and they don't have to worry every time that they take a drink, is this contaminated, could I die from this? Or the same now with the cannabis, that they have access to safe supply, it's a drug, but then there's some drugs that we are still moralizing and we criminalize. And so in order to get access to those drugs, you have to participate in criminal activity, which ends up that a lot of times people will end up with criminal records, which makes it harder for them to get housing or to get jobs. And so if the government were to decriminalize drugs and to make a safe supply available to people, would that be something that you think would help people?
I don't know. That's a really big picture to look at. Because then you gotta think about the taxing on drugs, and some of those drugs aren't the greatest for people who already have mental illness. There would have to be a big construed amount of testing to allow somebody to just buy crystal meth and continue to do it, or to do fentanyl and find out that they're allergic and then that person wants to continue to do it. It's hard to, like, I don't know, I'm kind of like on a rocking chair on that one, because
Yeah, so for certain drugs, it wouldn't be like just going to the store and buying them. It would be like through your doctor, through prescription. So if you're already somebody that has substance use issues and you need this drug, but knowing how toxic that the drug supply is right now, you could go to the drugstore and you could get a prescription of those drugs, like a medical form, like that's safe.
I don't know, you'd have to be specific about what you're talking about so that I could actually say, well, no or yes. You know what I mean? Like, if you think crystal meth is going to be something everybody should have access to through a doctor, but do you know everything about crystal meth? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a big open book that has really no ending until somebody can actually write it from finish to start to say, well, these kind of people should not be on crystal meth without these kind of medications, and if these medications don't mix with this kind of medication, then no. But see, it's so open-ended and so widely put out there that it's hard to say that with every drug.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there was a lot of testing that was done on weed and, alcohol. I don't know, I couldn't say anything about alcohol because that was long before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
But like with weed, there had to have been testing that allowed the government to say, okay, well, I just remember them saying it was a gateway drug. It makes me laugh. But like, I don't know, it's hard to say because like I used to smoke a lot of weed when I was a kid, and it calmed me down. It made everything funny and calmed me down. I smoke it now and it makes me paranoid and weirded right out. So it's hard for me to say if it would have been a good thing all the way through. But then there were hard drugs in between, right? So that's really, I don't think I'm medically inclined to actually to answer it. We could dance around it like that for a little while and get a good giggle out of it, but I don't think I would literally have to sit down with people who, like with physicians and people who know what it could do to somebody who has schizophrenia or dementia or...
So I'm talking about you personally. If you had access to your drugs through a prescription through your doctor and they were funded by OHIP and you were able to get the drugs that you use to cope, would that help you? Do you think that would help you to be able to maintain stable housing? Or
see, I have injury. I have spinal injury. So I would love to say yes, that's a good idea, and that if they construed it so that I could use it the way I wanted to, oh sure, absolutely, positively, 101%. But I don't think smoking fentanyl is something that a doctor's going to allow me to do. They're going to want me to take it how it was made. It, like I said, it's so
there's
hard
a lot of
It's so hard to like. It is a prescription drug. It is something that's man-made and put out there for people with pain, and some other people just found other reasons to have it, and some people who couldn't get it or afford it have found that there is some function in it, and that's the way they've chosen to do it because they couldn't get it through a doctor. And unfortunately, it doesn't always turn out to be the right way.
So talking about medical and getting stuff through a doctor and stuff like that, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've heard a lot of people tell me, and I know with Ryan having an experience with going to the hospital for a healthcare reason, and it could be totally unrelated to your drug use, but the stigma attached with when you go to hospital, that all they're seeing is like someone that uses drugs, and they don't even look at the other issue and look at your whole body or what other illnesses you could be experiencing. Have you?
I've only experienced that because I have high blood pressure. It wasn't until I started overplaying with fentanyl that I had some bad reactions and bad things happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
But before I even got involved with fentanyl, I couldn't even break a toe and not go to the hospital and have them just look at my high blood pressure and not my broken toe. So it all depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on how the person acts when they're there and when they want something for themselves. I don't think my comments would be very good right now. For the situations in my area. So.
Something that you spoke about before was like the teachings of your ancestors and stuff like that. Ryan's hope. Ryan was super proud of his Irish heritage, and there's an Irish proverb that I like, and I try to think about it with the work we're doing with Ryan's Hope, and it's like it's in the shelter of each other that people live. And like you were talking about how in your culture, like it's like the sense of community is so strong, right? Mm-hmm. And looking out for each other and stuff like that. Can you tell us like any teachings from your culture that you feel like have helped you, or that you feel would like help other people that are struggling or dealing with?
I have to say this number one and first most is that a lot of the time the way I was taught was talking about it, doing it, and living it was not always the best way to go about it when you're using. To teach somebody, to tell somebody, and to show somebody while you're using isn't always the best way or a welcomed way within our community. Some people find that that's just a no-no all the way around, and you're not to be involved unless you're clean-hearted and clean-souled and clean just generally. There are some things that I would talk about, but there are other things that I don't think people would get a good grasp of or use it in a proper way if I was to explain it while I was using or as I am using, because I don't think people would totally understand the severity of some of those things. But I don't think that there hasn't been a thing within my culture that hasn't helped and hasn't worked when you devote yourself to it.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to share about your story or Zach's story? Or?
Well, from what I hear, Zack and Ryan were really good friends. And I've been putting this off for quite some time now. Last Sunday was my son's 1-year anniversary for his passing. And there were some things that didn't get to happen. There were some things that should have happened, and we've just put them off only because we're trying to figure out amongst us in a wholehearted way what to do. So because I figured that they were such great friends, I think next Sunday I'm going to have a celebration of life at the Spear Catcher on the 13th of March. I'm going to have I would like to say at 5:36. Okay. I would like people to come down and have a balloon and send a message to Zack and Ryan. I'd like to see if you could come.
I would love
to be there and to do some things for Ryan as well. I've made some posters and add Ryan's name to them. I don't want anybody to. It's really short notice, but it's just the way sometimes things have to happen for me because I'm homeless and I can only do so much. But I have I have some balloons and some paper, and Zach likes to go down there and smoke in the morning and stuff like that. And I've told people, I say, you know, bring a meth pipe and just hang on to it. He doesn't have to smoke it or anything like that. We're just all going to be there for his moment, but there will be a moment of silence there where we all can say something within ourselves for him and the people that didn't get to say or see him before he was taken away with my mom. We'll get that chance on the 13th of March next weekend.
I will definitely be there.
That was what I was trying to hide from you yesterday when I was making posters.
Okay, I will definitely be there, and I'm so honored that you asked.
I would like to have coffee and all that stuff there, and hot chocolate, whatever. And, you know, not for a long time, just for a moment. So everybody can do a quick hug and a quick boo-hoo and just remember that, you know, all of those people, no matter how they died of overdose or by accident or whatever it is, that they're all up there looking out and looking after us and keeping us together by having this moment and having the Ryan's Breakfast Club and all of that stuff. Those things, we think we're doing that.
No, I always say that Ryan's still with me, just in a different way, and it's his strength that is keeping me going to be able to do this, because I don't have the strength to do this on my own. It's him. He's guiding this process. And don't forget that. And don't forget every time you hear that little voice say something to you that he is saying something to you. And the only thing you can do is do your best to change it to a happy moment, and when you're smiling, so is he. And that's what keeps me going every time someone's like, you know, like, it means a lot to
I
me
don't
that
even
you're
talk
here.
about it in a negative way anymore. I always say I'm jealous because he's up there with the 27 Club, you know, everybody that died at 27. Rock and roll people,
Ryan would love that being
people
up there.
People look at me really funny now, and I'm going, well, and then they were like, oh yeah, I would love to be there too, and I'm going, yeah, but you can't.
Not until it's your time, right? We can't go earlier than we're meant to go. That's what my husband said, you know, like, Ryan's on a new mission now, and we don't know what his mission is until we get there, but this is our mission, to continue on doing this, and for you to continue on helping all the people in the community that you do.
His mom together to get everybody else together too, so don't forget that.
For sure.
I hear them boys and I see them boys all over the place. It's kind of eerie, but it's funny at the same time.
Well, thank you so much for making the time to speak with us today and be a part of this series. I really do believe that, you know, people just having human conversations is what is actually going to open hearts and change minds. So thank you so much.
Not a problem. Great. It's been fun. Yay!
All right, so probably will be in a week that it will be like broadcast, so it'll be on YouTube and you can share it with everybody. And
I'm telling everybody already, so you know, there might be a whole group of people standing outside when we leave here today.
All right, that was awesome.